welcome to Mugs on Both. Mugs on Both exists to provide insight into the aviation industry. And we hope through our guests that we'll be able to give you insights and take you through the journey of what it actually means, whether you've thought of being a pilot, cabin crew, dispatcher, engineer. We hope through our guests that we'll lay it all down, take you through the highs, the lows, the ins and outs, the joys of everything to do with the aviation industry, and to leave you inspired at the end of it all. So my name is Dan Bryan. I'm the host, and I'm a flight and ground instructor. And today on the show, I have somebody special. For all those who would have wanted to know, what does it take to be a cabin crew? What is the life like? Okay, today we are here, and I'm excited to bring to you our guest, and I'll let him introduce himself. Hi, welcome to Mugs on Both.
Thank you so much, Dan. Hi, my name is Gingo Mwangi, or Teacher Ben, and I've been a cabin crew for about 15, 16 years, retired now, and I'm a trainer now in the same space.
Wow. Okay, so 15, 16 years. That's how long you did the work?
Yeah.
Okay. So take us back. I'd want us to go back. Let's go back to the beginning. Okay? Let's go back to the beginning whereby you when did you know that you would become a cabin crew? Or how did you end up to become a cabin crew?
Sorry, I'm laughing because I'm thinking I want to pull that one off from the time I was born. Anyway, that's a joke. Interestingly enough, I was always interested in the aviation space, and I had small drifts into thinking of being a pilot, and then I started thinking the demands of that and that the cost at that point was a bit high. And then by chance, the airline I've worked for all these years had vacancies. And so I thought, why not? So I applied, and then I was called in. At that point, the interesting thing was when you applied, they left it open, but it was a customer service job. So when we did our interviews, and by God's grace, I was able to get shortlisted, and I was able to pass the interview, ended up joining them. And so like every other airline, you join and then you're trained, then you're shown stuff, and it was really cool. But as much as I liked interacting with people, because before that, I was doing a lot of other things, through weather charge, other functions, and other things I'd exposed myself into. But then in this space, the job, there are a lot of things you're not prepared for. So, you're taught in school, you give it those demos, you get to fly what we call supernumerary flights, you get exposed and all that. But until when they say the rubber meets the road, when you're now told, yeah, good enough, check in and see what's up. That's when now you realize it's either going to work for you as a passion and grow, or you're going to have to survive it or quit. But yeah, I was able to work through it, grow through it, learn a lot. I don't know if I can say better myself, but the skills I got there are totally transferable in any place. And in fact, I saw it through a number of other of my colleagues and friends who, yes, went and worked for other airlines, and they moved up the ranks. Some even became pilots. Some are still flying now as captains already. Others went on to open serious businesses and their own things. Others went and joined other companies totally different from that, from insurance. I know if in the insurance space, in the banking space. I know a few who went into politics, and somehow everybody seems to be doing very, very well. Oh. Very. So as a cabin crew, even though we don't use the word cabin crew anymore, most of us use flight attendant. You can imagine the names. There was steward, stewardess, hostess, and it was a lot of things. But nowadays it's just flight attendant. I can tell you for sure that that's a field that if actually people appreciate it for what it is, has extremely high level based skills, life skills, because it's a space you deal with human beings continuous. So, and basically we're in a world where we deal with human beings. And if you excel in that, the kind of skills you get from there are extremely transferable into any other system. Because think about it, in business, the bloodline is the customer. Yeah. But here's the funny thing. Everybody knows the customer is external, right? Yes. The guy coming to buy. Yes. No. Customers are two. There's the internal customer and there's the external customer. The internal customer is the guy you're working with. So if the two of you are not working well, how is it going to work well for the other person out there? So you can imagine such things. And then the exposure. Different cultures, different places, dialects, styles. Kenya has like 40-something tribes, and you'll meet them in their original state. You know, as much as it's a situational where we call it the tube, you're locked in with these people for a minimum. The shortest one was, let's say, because I was in the country, it's between 45 minutes max. But those 45 minutes, you're interacting with these people at high speed. But you're still going to see them again and again and again. And can imagine for 16 years, if you're flying about an average of about 100 hours a month. And that's a small bit. So you can imagine for all those years, how much interaction you will do with people who are common flight guys and people from everywhere. Wow. So the kind of thing you get, wow.
Okay. So, you see, on that by itself, you've taken us almost like throughout the entire journey. Okay? No, that's the thing is, because you've talked about, what the job entails, how it feels like, how you got into it, and that's what I was asking, like from the beginning. Did you so for you it wasn't a thing that you
it wasn't a thing that was in your mind for real.
It was in your mind.
Yeah, no. I was looking for work.
You were looking for work.
I was looking for work.
You just
stumbled into it, and it kind of blended, and it was really awesome.
And it became something that you now love.
Oh yeah.
And you stayed there for
16
years.
Oh yeah.
So yet again, somebody would be like, so does that mean that all these things happen just by chance?
No, really.
When it comes to becoming a flight attendant, like you.
No, actually, what happens is,
there's the context of what happened back then,
yes,
and what is happening now.
I don't know if I really want to go there with what I have in mind, but I'll put it this way, so I can be politically correct. The education system has taught us to think a certain way, regardless of whether you're an A student or an E student. It doesn't matter. But there's a certain way, over time, you've been trained to think. You might not think so, but it's a fact. And, nowadays we don't have that song. So, and then Kazi Mzuri or something like that. So, what is Kazi Mzuri? You will find that in most spaces that we are in, you are not really honed out to think career-wise, per se, through the lens of your passion. You usually pushed to get into that space of thinking, what would definitely earn you something? And that's something also with what you consider a state of dignity for yourself. So, and you'll find that leverage kind of blocks a lot of the opportunities that stand out there. Now, I'll give you a hint from one of my students told me one time, and this was before we took them for an experiential flight and airport visit. So she was like, the day we announced that we're going to do that, what did she say? She was like, oh, do we come with high heels and the small bag and things like that? And we're like, girl, do you really know what's going to happen? Because that's what they see. They see the nice high heels, all the elegance, the bush, and all that stuff. However, what they don't understand is that is when that person is leaving the airport, or arriving to get to the aircraft. From there, all things change. And so when we did that kind of going in through, I'll kid you not, out of the quorum of people we went and gave that, 4 of them said, it's been real. We've studied, this was like the simulation stage, But now that I know what's happening, because now they met the crew that are actually in the space. When we joined, none of us really quit. But I remember a few years later, another group that joined, because there's those supernumeral flights where they're basically training crew.
So explain to us what is supernumeral.
Yeah,
flights?
so what happens is you get trained. You get trained and everything, and then comes the stage where you're no longer going to fly just as a passenger, just like that, because now you had the experience of flying how the aircraft looks like. Now you get in there and you shadow the other crew as they work. So you're already considered a crew, but in training. So that's a number of flights, about 10 flights, which you will do. But all those flights you will do as a trainee are called supernumeral. They're not counted into your duty per se and stuff like that. You're literally now seeing what happens. So in those periods, this nice lady, her breaking point was turbulence. So have you ever seen guys in a football field where everybody goes, hey, and everybody, hey? So unfortunately, it was what we call the morning wave. A lot of big aircrafts are landing and stuff like that. So it's very bumpy. And we were doing those short flights. So those short flights happen to cause her do the wave enough times because it's...
basically just
her heart went to her mouth, to her brain. Eventually it left. And she was also broken and tears. She quit. Rosafi, the next time we met her, she was working in the block, the administration block side. But then it's been real. So when you talk about, I'm coming back to where we started because we kind of digressed a bit. Coming back to where that space we're saying, like, is it by luck or by joy that goes in there? I would say the linear thinking that has been created in our heads to think, get a good job. The good job means where you're paid and some status. That's why you'll find people pursue it. But the catch-22 on this is this. If it's not something that aligns with something that works with you, whether you have identified all your passions or not, then you have no room for growth, if I can put it that way. And for me, by the time I was getting to this space, the things that I was able to leave alone a lot of other experiences and a lot of other stuff happening, the things that actually built on me were from this fact. Before that, I loved events. Before that, I loved dealing with people. Before that, I had been exposed to quite a number of other things that were still around the same area where I deal with people, I'm out there talking to people and stuff like that. So this exposure was just like a continuation of where I was coming from. And the lack of it is that at that point, by then, it wasn't paying well. Okay. It wasn't paying well at all.
It wasn't paying well.
Yeah, it wasn't about the money. Believe me, if it was about the money, that's not where I would have been at.
So
but
if I'm to understand you, so does it mean then what are some of the attributes if you want to become a flight attendant? What are some of the things that should be almost like we'd say be innately in you? You know, the way at times you're told, for you to be able to get into this job, you need an A in math, you need you need these grades. So when it comes to being a flight attendant, you're saying does the grade count? And if the grade counts, then what I see from you is you're saying that it is more about you.
Yes.
Rather than more than any other thing.
Yes, I'll tell you why.
So explain to us what are some of these things that should be innately in you. What, like you just said, you're before you got into it, you're into events. You liked hanging out with people, all these other things. So what are some of these things that you could say you can clearly identify and be like, you want to become a flight attendant? Do you like this? Do you like that? Blah blah blah.
Yeah. Now to become a flight attendant, I will not talk about the grade because if you look at the interview spaces, direct entry crew are just from high school, okay? But yes, the training, for example, like I'll use KQ Prep, for example, they have a C+ basis for that. And that sometimes I think the grading has to do with the HR. But the truth of the fact, to be able to be a successful flight attendant, you gotta love people. Have the patience to be with them, and work with them. So you gotta love people. 2, you also gotta have a heart for continuous learning. There's a lot to learn. From hand gestures to, because there are places where this is common in this one place, this is obscene in another space. 3, you kind of gotta love, I'm looking for the right word for this. You just have to have a profiling state of mind. And I'll dive into that. I've really looked for the right words. They were not coming in together.
You need to be able to see and understand somebody before you
And
interact
zero
with them.
judge.
Yes.
Zero judge. And the profiling state of mind is not only for this, your security and safety, but it also helps you to identify client needs way before they, and you can do it even at home. I mean, we innately have a way of knowing when, for example, mom is going to pinch. There's an eye you will see. I don't know if that happens nowadays, but yeah, there's an eye that used to be thrown your way and you become sick on point, even if you're doing whatever. But why I was looking for that word is because the airline exposes you to a lot of fallacy, for lack of better words. It's like being a superstar at a point. You'll go to these high-end hotels, you'll meet these high-end people, you'll never really be locked in what's going on. You're in for a very short time. Like for us, you'd find that 90% of the time you are away. And when you're home, people are at work, so you're sleeping. And when they're home, you are gone. So if you're not sorting things immediately down there, you're basically away somewhere else where you're just in a hotel and stuff. There's no basis of monotony because even the guys you work with. However, in character as a person, you must be somebody who's able to absorb a lot of things without imploding.
And what do you mean by absorb?
I talked about customers, internal, external, right? The job itself is extremely demanding, even in the easiest of flights. However, you're not really going to work with the same person or the same team as often. Like the flight deck mostly, because there are fewer, they tend to fly together in the same fleets that they're in. But for the rest of the crew, regardless of it, you might fly with one person once for like a year. So you're meeting different people continuously. However, everybody has a briefing of somebody else. So tendencies of people coming with their own thoughts of what you're all about are there. That's 1. 2, you're always meeting new clientele in the form of passengers, right? And these people, they experience through the journey as much as the company would really try and give a nice experiential, a nice experience for the client, they might not have such a thing, right? But guess what? Throughout the whole airport, it's been marked that they spend a maximum of about 12 minutes, and then they come to you. So even with your shortest flight, which is 45 minutes, you're locked in with this guy or this lady. So if you're going to get rallied by every hectic situation that is there, which is more often than not, what happens, it's going to be hectic for you. I hear people in Swahili say roho rahisi or something like that. If it gets to you, it's going to eat you up. Then also now comes the other aspect of family connections, being available, things like that, missing events. I kid you not. Personally, I was home for Christmas, I think 3 times in the 16 years I was working. Let's not talk about birthdays. Let's talk about the kids and all that and everything else. So that attribute of being able to actually balance yourself soberly and be able to maintain that, it's a done deal. Now, we can go to the academic side of things. Oh, you need to communicate clearly. You need to know how to smile. Smile, not the plastic one. Yeah. Ethics in terms of morals.
Are these things that now you're also taught as you go along the process of
Some
training?
you can. Others, it's a nail in a wet wood trying to pull out. I mean, if you have it, yes. Some of these are skills you can acquire. As I said, you gain skills that are transferable. But innately, the first 3 that I was actually talking about, those ones are kind of critical. As in, personally within you, you must be able to do these things without having to. Yes. So what you'll be taught now, you could really love people, but you don't know how to now talk. So you'll be given the right language to talk, when, where, and how. Then you might be able to have the ability to profile people without judging. Then now you're taught how to address different situations in that. Then again, now remember, internal, external customers, then you need to understand which to give where and how. And it goes all the way even in leadership. Because if you're leading a team, and not that you'll always not have that abrasiveness, but there's a way you can lead a team and get the results you seek, or you can lead a team and get the results you seek. Okay. You get what I mean? Yeah. So it's a balance game that you are the one balancing them. Wow. And you need the strength to actually do that. So that strength, if you don't have it,
you know, I feel at this point in time, I feel like, you know, you've just almost overturned every single thing that somebody, because truth be told, when you arrive at the airport and you see the pilots and the cabin crew walk in, that's all you like. Once you see them, and especially
smiling,
like
makeup on point,
that's all. Like it's like a movie, and anyone who wants to get into their profession, they see themselves as they're going to be that person.
Oh yeah.
You know, the makeup, the high heels, the bag, you're just dragging the bag behind you. You're all in sync. It's almost like it's like a musical, it's like a band, it's like, you know.
You're talking
all these things. You know.
I teach you that.
But all of a sudden, you're telling us that is for sure.
Yeah, that's true.
That's not the work.
No, that's not the back.
That's not the work.
Oh no,
that's
it's
not the work. Wow. So this now, what you're just saying, now you're describing what the work is. So is it? No, that question I'll leave it on for later on. But now for you, you get in. You loved people.
Oh yeah.
You worked in events. So through the 15 years, how was the training? Because yet again, I believe you worked in different aircrafts, right?
Yes.
So what was it about working in different aircrafts for you? What is it like? Paint for us a picture of what it actually looks like. Flying. Did you fly just locally, or did you? Did you fly also internationally?
We flew internationally as well.
You flew internationally.
But let me give you the picture. So I started. So I'm green.
Yeah.
Okay. Basically, guys who don't know nothing, we say green horns. You get to know a bit. We call you brown horns. You get black horns, right? So I'm an absolute green horn, right? And this is the first time I'm in an airline. Okay. So you trained well, you've done your supernumeraries, now you're thinking, let me start. So you start. What used to happen back then is you start with the local flights within, then you go regional a bit, and you spend some time there as you are learning speed, things like that. I don't think I ever gained the speed because, dude, I love talking to passengers.
What do you mean by speed?
Speed is serving. Oh. Speed is serving. I mean, service takes about 15, 30 minutes max, and it depends with the route because when I'm serving, there's a place you'll just get your karanga and soda or karanga tea or some cake. And then there's a place where there's a full meal and there's a bar service and all that. So there's a speed you need to go with. And I kid you not, there are people who are gurus in this thing. They will move through the whole cabin, still talk to passenger service. You're supposed to take about 30 seconds per passenger because you have your own portion given. Now, interestingly, what you've asked about the ranking into, because you do something called the aircraft specific training. So each aircraft has, even though it could be a Boeing, for example, it has a different configuration and a different way people are sitting and stuff. So it depends with what you're able to put.
So, and again, what is configuration?
Okay, so think of a movie hall. Okay, think of a movie hall. So every movie hall has a different pattern of seating. Or think of a lecture room where you have seats, and each seat has. Oh yeah, let's talk something better. Think of an event. wedding, whatever, people are seated in different designs. Now, that different seating design, different patterns.
The way people can be either sitting in a round table.
Yes, round table,
or maybe it's a long table.
Long one,
you know,
or two-seater. Yeah.
That's the configuration.
Yes, that's configuration. So in the aircraft, you find there are those that have it's just an aisle. An aisle is the space that is between sitting one side and one side where people can walk. Usually passengers walk there where they can put their bags, remove the bags, get into and outside the aircraft. It's called an aisle, like the wedding aisle of the church thing, yeah? So you have seats on this side, seats on this side, and maybe there are two seats. And then you find that at the front where there could be a business or what you call a first class, it's just one seat, big seats. And then there's another one you get in, and there are two aisles. So you have two seats there, two seats here, two seats there. So there are two aisles, which means two crew can go through. There are rows of passengers can walk through. All that has a different format of service because catering comes with how many people you need to serve. Now, when you talk about configuration, you find that the bigger the aircraft, the more complicated the configuration by numbers. So you find there's one where you dealing with about 8 clients. Dealing with 45 clients.
Wow.
Okay? And then it also depends with where you're flying. Because sometimes too many of you want to go on holiday, so they take the big one.
So what do you mean by too many of us?
Too many of you. I'm talking about clients.
Now it's like clients are just too many.
So you're used to that car, 20 people with you, and today you have like 2 SOG. The only thing that changes is the aircraft, the number of people working with you. But the flight time, in fact, the bigger the aircraft, the faster it goes. But the service is still the same. So this other one, which was easy when I began to Karanga, I'm smiling over there with you and giving you. And this other one, we, as much as we're in there, we'll be zooming. So it's like, do you want? By the time you go like, I'm gone. Because I gotta finish this and I gotta come and change again. Even though I have an additional team member with me. So these are the things I'm talking about. As in, over time, you start learning how to coordinate yourself with others. You start learning how to accept others with their weaknesses. You start accepting that you might be thrown under the bus anytime because things change. You could be... Now, I'll get into this by saying this. Why I said you had to have a heart that is actually able, to absorb a lot is because aircrafts are man-made, just like any other machinery. So they do break down. And because of even the regulations that force us as crew to operate, sometimes the crew are to do that flight can't go anymore because there's something called flight time limitation. It's a period that you are allowed to actually operate actively as a crew between that period. Now, if you're going to exceed the hours given to you, then you can't do that flight, even if it was an international one. So they have to bring another team. And usually how airlines cover that up, they have a standby crew that does not get their hours started being counted until they're actively engaged. Now you can imagine, you're thinking, I hope that flight goes so I can get some day off. Shock on you. I told, that thing blocked off, so you guys are checking in. So yeah, it's tag team get into the ring. And that time you're thinking, I hope it doesn't go so that I hope it goes so that I can do my other things and all that stuff. So that means now and usually what happens is if you're on standby, you're not going to be off the next day. Probably on standby, and then tomorrow you'll be doing a later flight. And then now you have your schedule. But you see, because you've been called into this one now, and it's maybe a 4-day flight, 2-day flight, it messes up everything else from here. So if you are too restrict or stringent in the way you think, that can mess you up, and quite a bit.
Yeah. Also, you just said standby. So
yes.
Also to explain to somebody what standby actually means. So you're not on duty.
I'm not on duty.
You're not on duty, but you are to be.
Yes,
you're
supposed to be reachable. Yes,
you're supposed to be reachable.
You're supposed to be reachable and prepared.
And come to work and start working.
Now here's the funny thing. Senior crew knew this very easily. You would find out which type of scheduled flights are going to be happening around the period that you're on standby, so that you know the possibility of which ones you would go for. Mm-hmm. Not so much for the guys starting out.
Yeah, they're green.
So they're green. So they know they're on standby, but you'll find sometimes, the advantage was when you're told come standby, come to the airport, then you'll know I'm just going to do within. I'm not going to do an international flight or something. Rarely it would happen. But if you're on standby at home, standby meant be ready to be called just in case.
And what was the lead time given for you to, like, so when you're called,
Yes.
by what time should you be at the reporting?
The reporting time, you always, depending from which flight it is, but you're always told about 2.5 hours to be at the airport. But the best part is that you're peaked or something, unless you are using your own car to take yourself. But you always advise about 2.5 hours. But they will call you way before that. And even if they call way later, they still give you some time duration for you to actually get there in good time, because a flight should actually leave within the scheduled time, within the hour given. So, and then again, there are all these other regulations that come up, but those ones we can cover later, because in Africa, we kind of chill a bit, but places like in Europe, a scheduled flight getting delayed, very costly for the organization operating from that. So, in hindsight, the one thing that, the one common skill that I realized from most people that got on that space is that you're never frazzled with whatever situation shows up in your life. It never gets you so shaken that you can't think. In fact, in that space of always seeking solutions on your feet and always ready, like it's going to happen either way, one way or another, something's going to happen. So you are never in that raised adrenaline state. You just, somehow teaches you to just be very calm. Story goes that after about 10 years, a lot of things, cabin crew or flight attendant, actually flight personnel per se, I don't know if it works for ground guys, I think it's flight personnel. There are things you can't be allowed to do.
And flight personnel, you mean both?
I mean both, and that's why I'm being very politically correct. I'm meaning flight deck crew, that's the pilots, and cabin crew, and air marshals, and flight engineers, even though I don't know if you still have flight engineers with all the upgraded aircrafts, and any other personnel that has to work in an aircraft. Within the duration, frequently flying, in 10 years, there are quite a number of things they can't get to do. One of them they're discouraged to do is like donate blood. And especially if you do a lot of international flights. I also understand you can't be a juror because
but
you're not considered to be...
Is that in America or...
No, I don't think even here they would allow. Because think about it. I mean, you're with this person who's seen everything and all the stuff, and they've learned to go like,
Okay.
So, and then you're putting them over there to make a judgment call on someone, and they're thinking, so what's the big deal? I mean, so I'm not saying that that's the way it is, but let's face reality. A lot of people will be there for a while. They think the world has bigger problems than some of the things. So they're like, whatever, man, we'll deal with that. So yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah. So for your duration, you learned skills. Actually, my question was, what are some of the highlights maybe for you?
My highlights,
now take us through. What are some of the great joys that you had?
Oh yeah.
What are some of, maybe if you can talk about some of the lows that you had?
Mental exposure.
So is that a high or is that a low?
It's a high like there's no tomorrow. It's a high. The things that are very core and key and common for us, and we think they're all that, and then you go out there and you realize. And then the things out there, they think they're all core and then they come back and they go like, yeah. And what that does for you is that it kind of breaks the barriers into how many divergence you can look into a situation. Another seriously transferable skill that I use even today was the ability, and even though at that point, and I do thank the leaders there and the managers and the things they exposed us to, was standards. There's an argument that Zama Joe used to say, if it's not written, it's not valid. And I got to really appreciate that, because if it's recorded, anybody else can pick from there.
True.
The word of mouth is good, but we moved out of word of mouth a long time ago. Even the Bible, the Quran, everything's written down now. So let's stick with written stuff. Okay. Another thing I appreciate that became a seriously transferable skill was customer engagement. I used to just think customer. Sometime back, I used to think customer has to do with sales. But the truth of the fact is, as the world has evolved, you get to realize it's about customer experience. So it doesn't matter how good a product is. It doesn't matter how hot your marketing system is. How you make that person feel, and that starts again from the internal, external space, actually goes ahead to build your brand and product even further, and helps in that innovation space. And now you can combine that together with that aspect of observation and learning, and then writing it down and setting up standards. Then you find that it is a win. It's an extremely winning. Yes, thank you for using that word. So this, I'm trying. So it's not downing or dumbing things down, but you're thinking, I'm about to go all out aviation jargon, and then you realize,
no, you have to try and make sure that everyone else, we have this. Yeah, the channel is.
I'm remembering the question you asked me. For people who think flight attendant also, so what do I need to be a flight attendant? You just need to be you. And what does that mean? That means you need to test yourself in terms of how do you respond to high stress triggers. Because I mean, in my experience, I've been spat on, I've been slapped.
So these are some of the laws.
They're not laws, by the way. No laws. Because by the time somebody hits you, you're going like, what was I looking at before I was hit? I mean seriously, because the training you get prepares you for all this. Okay, it prepares you, and then you're never alone, and that's something you get to appreciate. Because let me tell you, even those nice-looking, well-manicured, looking hot makeup ladies, they can. Hey, you see the way cops pick you up from the ground. Those nice-looking ladies with their manicured nails, they will still pick you up like that. I mean, you go through all this. There's a whole set of training. In fact, I've seen some airlines where they have serious now high-level defense training. But yes, because you're working as a team, there's a way you are taught on how to go about it. Because again, by the time somebody becomes disruptive, it's already heading towards a legal space. So there's a lot of things to consider. But that, not getting into that space, rarely will you find a lot. In fact, some of the clients will even help you out. So your work is to always know how to de-escalate a situation, regardless of how it is. Always taking it down. Sometimes you'll even apologize when it's not your fault. And the client will come and tell you, hey man, if I were you, I would have slapped that. Like, nah. Today he's upset or she's upset. This happened. Tomorrow she's still going to pay the same ticket. Because this person is not paying little money to be there with you, buying your service. Because your service is what they're buying. But then, and then there are those who are just nasty. And those ones are dealt with. In fact, I love the organization. They put a very big sticker on all the desks as we're checking in that they do not condone harassment of their staff. And immediately given that warning, it's a done deal. So, yes, but there are laws. There are laws like losing colleagues through natural ways, then accidents. There are laws when the organization has to come up with tough things like retrenchment and things like that. There are laws like when you have a situation where there's a misunderstanding between you and colleagues and staff, and at that period there's a lot of tension and all that. But in most cases they're not. As I told you, you do not have enough time to mellow on these things. It's a touch and go. Like the way pilots do, you come there, touch and then take off again. That's how the life is, because you are checking in today, there was drama today, and by tomorrow you're leaving for a nice place, and there's all these other things happening. So your mind is totally off that. And the unfortunate part is, unless you carry it along, then you get into this cycle of other things where you won't forget stuff, and then you kind of get into that place where it's not so cool. But aviation is nice.
So after the 15, 16 years, if you don't mind. So what happened after 15, 16 years? Did you decide, I've had enough? Did you decide, I've gone everywhere I thought, I've lived the dream, and I think the dream is now time to wake up, if it was. What happened 15, 16 years?
Confession time. Okay, so I'll be very honest. I have not lived that dream. I'll tell you why. One of the biggest things that lacks in this profession is sound mentorship. Okay. Again, you're restricted by where your airline goes. Okay. And in the middle of all that, the lack of mentorship then makes you make a lot of mistakes. For example, I'll give you one. One time, a set of managers who believed in my abilities called me and told me, yo, it's time for you to cool at this promotion, so check in and do this. I looked at them and told them, I see the drama these guys go through. I'm not going to do that. So I said, nah. and let me tell you, trying to get to that position took me another 5 years. And this one was being offered to me by a hand. And it came with a lot of drama with that. Okay, now that's one. But you see, if I had somebody who was telling me, dude, just go for it, definitely would have gotten there. 2, yes, you're not earning all that in the beginning, but then in the later end, industry changes and stuff like that, you kind of start earning. But then no direction on how to go about it. So you do the basics. Yeah, if you have a brother taking care of, you have a sister to care of, or whatever, basics. Only for you, in the end, when you decide, I think I've had it, then you realize there's really nothing much you've done for yourself or anybody else. In fact, sometimes you find yourself on the red. 3, and that's because tomorrow you wake up and you hear there's a retrenchment. I mean, you start grabbing into. Have you ever slept in the shower and then you find yourself trying to grab the shower? You've even forgotten that at least there's some handles around you can hold. That's what happens when tomorrow you hear that the carpet is being pulled under you, and then you realize all this time you've just been letting things float. All right. So for me, 16 years flown, I'll tell you the truth. I was ready to quit. Why? Because after flying for a while, it reached a point and I got a desire, or I got the taste of training. And I wanted, you know the way you get a taste of something and you can't just let go? So I wanted that. And every effort for me to try and get that done somehow didn't come into fruition. So I was ready to quit. In fact, I took leave for about 3 months, talked to my managers. I had really nice managers, by the way. We could fight, but really nice, because we'd sit and have a conversation, a very sober. And then again, I had reached an age where, now I was in that age where, talk like an old man. So I was ready to get it done. So by the time I was saying enough, I was already done with flying, as per se the space I was in. If I was to do any flying, and that's why some of our students laugh at me, because when it gets time to go for this thing, they're like, yo, you're with so-and-so. I'm cool. And they're like, why can't you? I'm like, nah, I've done it long enough. You guys go enjoy. I had gotten in that space that I needed something else, because at least for that, I can thank God that I had gone through all the ranks. I'd come from a junior training flight attendant, all the way to what we call a flight passer, which is basically a flight supervisor or the flight boss, basically reporting to the pilot in charge of the aircraft at that point. So then the space becomes very small after that, because after that you're going into management and you only have a manager dealing with a vast number of guys. So, but my passion was in the training side, where I felt that I would grow better. I would get opportunities to mentor and coach. I would learn even more and even get exposed more to what's happening. And eventually, like, my goal is to get to a place where we can even influence some of the policies and stuff that come in the area that I really like, which is in aviation and business. So, yeah, and it was of age. And I thank God that that part got accepted. And here I am. Yes.
So now, it's almost like we're going to go backtrack just a bit.
Yeah.
So that also somebody understands what are some of, because you've just mentioned it, what are some of the ranks that actually somebody goes through, and maybe what does it take?
Yes.
Because you can come from training. Once you're done with training and now you get your job, what are some of the ranks that you are looking at raising through, if not that, and also what are the time durations?
Okay.
And maybe what is there something, an additional skill, any additional training that you need for you to get there?
All right. I like that, at least. It gives me organization because I can be everywhere at anywhere. I'm a scatterbrain, by the way. I can be all over the place. So I don't know how it has gone for now, but when we were doing it, when we were in the process of it, you would start as a training flight attendant. And a training flight attendant meant that probably even at that point, you've not been certified to fly as crew, because you need a flight attendant, or what we call the crew member certificate. Okay, I think I've said it correct if I'm not wrong.
You're the expert.
I'm trying to remember the initials because it's either CMMC or CMC. I think it's CMC, crew member certificate. This one shows that you have actually trained and passed the safety emergency, and then you are valid to operate a certain model of aircraft or a number type of aircrafts. So as a training flight attendant, you don't have that. That's when you're doing what we call the supernumerary most of the time. Nowadays, I hear you already have it. Things change. V2V change. Then you become a junior flight attendant. Now, the junior flight almost restrictively will be in economy class.
In the coach class.
Yes. This place, okay, now this word has been overused, but back then we used to call it maandamano. Because that is where everybody is uko. And everything, you know? Mm-hmm. So it was like that. So the junior flight attendant is usually in this space. And in most cases, they're not. Even in the big aircraft, you would find them seated over the overwing exits. This is the aircraft, the two small doors, or the doors just next to the wings. Mm-hmm. That's where their seats are most of the time. But then at this period, between training flight attendant and junior flight attendants, it's anything between 6 to a month over there, depending. Because the training is usually when you're still in training, and training takes about 3 months. Then you start your supernumerals. By the 5th month, you're already being certified. Then you start from that. So 6, 12 months, you're already in that space. Then the junior flight attendant can fly maybe a year or 2. And then they just become a normal flight attendant, where they can work in the general spaces, whether in the first class area or economy. But now here's a catch-22, depending on the airline. Because there are airlines that have first class, business, economy. You will find that the normal flight attendant will have training, and that training will determine which class of the aircraft they will work in. Yeah? So you'll find that business guys have additional training for business class, the first class have additional training, but these are just flight attendants, okay? Now, I'm talking of 2 airlines, I'll not name names, but the ones that I know is that from the flight attendant, now you start getting senior levels. So you have maybe senior level 1, 2, 3. But where I was at, you just become a senior flight attendant. So you're a flight attendant, and then you're a senior flight attendant. These are ranks crew gave each other because even when you are given positions, which the flight supervisor gives, you consider somebody's experience and the space they can be in. Unless you have the one who's already promoted and actually has the stripes to show. So you'd find somebody with 1 stripe, 2 stripes, 3 stripes, then 4 stripes. 4 stripes is definitely the boss in that flight, you know. And sometimes you'll get on a flight. There's a flight we did and we were all 4 stripes. But again, now you look at the years. So there was somebody who was in front there who was years. I won't say prehistoric. Was years. And then the rest of us. But that was just a fun flight. I don't know why somebody organized that, but they said it was a fun flight. And it was so much fun. Because we were dealing with really irate passengers. But then when they're ranking and they're saying, Ama, this is the new uniform, because everyone is striped up. You know, they used to saying, because these are common flyers. Mm-hmm. So frequent flyers, sorry, not common flyers. Frequent flyers mean somebody who travels with you a lot. Mm-hmm. So they kind of identify you. Even some of them know your names. Mm-hmm. But then at that rank, though I digress, at that rank, they couldn't make so much noise because, again, they're realizing, oh, this guy solved me one time. So as much as they were irate, they could not. They gave their complaints, but in a nice way. It wasn't going to be the hell that was there. And the manager did that. I kudos to them. Good old days. Now, coming back to what I was talking about. So the senior crew, usually a crew who've flown for over 3 years. At least they've flown over 3 years. And then they will definitely be, if you're actually a ranked senior crew, you would be the one or the boss in economy. So when there are issues there, they'll be brought to you before they escalate to the others. And then now you have, like for the airline I worked for had first class and economy. That's it. But the other one I'm talking about, they have business class. So you'll find that like there are two senior crew, proper signed senior crew, one in business, one in economy. And then now you have what we call the first class crew and the flight passer. So the first class crew, who are trained first class crew, could have even been a junior crew. Oh. But in their bougie state and their style, they're qualified to be. They cannot work in economy.
What is the politics around that?
Please let's not go there.
Okay, we'll not
let's
go,
just say
we'll not
they're
go
first class crew. And rarely you'll see gentlemen there. But there are those who made it. And well, they did. And
they're first class.
They're first class crew.
Let's just leave it at that.
It's not that they are better than the others, but they do fit. They do fit in the first class. Yeah, maybe the others had, chipped nails. I don't know. So we spent time there. Yeah. So I don't know if I've that was it. Then now you would probably have a flight manager who basically is in charge of quite a big team. Once in a while, they will fly to just audit the flight. Audit means they check if you're doing the right jobs, if you're doing the right documentations, just how you're carrying yourself, your interaction with passengers.
Is the flight manager senior to the purser?
Yes, because that person is in charge of a number of flight passers who basically are teams of crew. So, because again, remember, as a flight passer does not determine the crew they're flying with.
Oh, so
that comes from what we call the crew scheduling. These are the people who schedule the flight and say these are the crews that are going to cover that flight or going to work in that flight. Okay. But now the flight manager, the cabin manager is in charge of a number of these flight passers and in charge of these seniors and this. So you'll find like a cabin manager has like 200, 400 people under them. And they're specifically, so they're the ones who will know the status of this crew, the medical, because again, you need to remember, crew are medically checked. Back then it was 2 years, nowadays is annually. You go for a whole medical checkup. And so they're the ones who check on that. And then we have that thing of, as you can see, I'm on the added side, let's leave it at that. They check, you have to be within a certain scale of weight that matches with your height. And it might look like it's very restrictive. No, but it's not just policy, but even for your health and stuff. So, because you're always under that pressurized cabin. And medically, it's advised that there's certain weight levels that you should be within that actually matches with your height. So what we call the body mass index. And that's checked. That does not mean that a nice model, tiny and all that stuff, can also have medical issues, and that's why you're checked every year, because cholesterol, all that stuff, kind of plays into your ability to work.
Wow. Okay. At least taking us through the ranks to understand what actually it entails.
Oh, I didn't tell you the passer. Sorry.
The passer.
You need to have been above over 5 years at least. You've worked at least 5 years.
Does that 5 years?
Yes.
So let me ask an additional question.
But you need to have been a senior crew.
Senior crew.
To get to a passer, yes.
And can you be a passer? For you to be a passer, do you need to have flown different fleets? Or can you just be a passer in one particular fleet? No. Like if you've flown the Boeing 737, 300 or 600.
All the way.
So is it you and the company has...
Okay, the number of aircraft you've flown is an advantage if your airline has that. But let's face reality. If you're in an airline where they only have one model of the aircraft, only your years will matter because of the experience. Okay. And then for every rank, there's some training that takes you higher, because now you get into the leading teams, you get into the leading, all that stuff. Okay. So the training is very helpful as well, because it also teaches you, for example, the additional duties that come with that position. So yeah, so you're able to actually walk around it.
Oh. So you've taken us to 15, 16 years. Now let's go back to that. And you've left, and you've said you had a heart. For what?
Yes, for training. Yes.
So tell us, because in the beginning when you started, you told us about how much transferable skills are actually there.
Yes.
So because I've interacted with you and your mind is all over the place, far from being all over the place, but it is also a brilliant mind.
Oh, thank you.
Because, yet again, somebody would think, if I do this, am I only limited to flying in an aircraft? Am I only limited, so you've talked about these transferable skills. You've talked about training, and that's what you really wanted to do. And I know you from a place of training. So how are we going to tackle this? We're going to start with training.
How did I get there?
The thing that you love.
Yes.
The thing that you're like,
yes.
This is where I want to go.
All right. So when we were still in the airline, we were exposed to a lot of these guys coming to train and ask questions and things like that, new skills and all that. I'll confess, I personally don't like reading. I've interacted with people who really love reading. I never liked reading. Then you go to a space where I started realizing there's a lot of stuff in the reading. So I started getting into that. And then a friend of mine one time asked me, you deal with people every day and all that. Okay, we used to do, you don't think like it's a training thing. For example, way back when I was in events and stuff, you'd find that, because we're in the modeling space as well, you find somebody come and tell you, oh yes, I did model. And they would tell you something like, so you showed these guys how to do this thing. And so you're doing it and you're telling them and you're taking time and then somebody comes and says, oh yeah, I really enjoyed, as in she's really good in what he was doing. That goes through here, goes out through here, because it's not registering at that point. And then later in the years to come, I think it was around 2012, 2013, a friend of mine calls me and tells me, by the way, you deal with customers, you deal with people every day. Can you teach some grown-ups this customer service thing and everything? And so I was like, I can try. Because I'm training other crew on board and we're talking these things. And sometimes we're able to get exposed into some of this stuff by talking to people. I used to say talking to people and tell people what to do. So this was a bunch of government PAs and assistants. This is what this friend of mine was doing. So I went, I researched on it, I prepared, and then I started reading at, okay, how do you prepare Nini seminars and stuff? And I looked at that, and then I went, I did the training. And that's why I said I got a taste of it. And I enjoyed it. It was a 3-day thing. I was days off, thank God. And I got a taste of it. So I came back, I went and talked to a HR friend of mine about it, and I said, what took you so long? Like, huh? Then I went to a manager of mine, they said, yeah, you should be trying to expose yourself. So that's when I started politicking, trying to get into that space. But every time my pal had something they were doing, whether it was here, Naivasha, Mombasa, hey, thank God for her. That's when I started testing these things. That when you're crew, you fly to these places, but you get to the hotel, you sign on, you go, you snooze. You wake up, you go, you leave. Or you go do a bit of shopping, come back and go. But now when you travel like all these are passengers you've been carrying around.
Now you're the passenger.
You're the passenger. And then you're going on and go, Mwalimu doesn't have a room. Hello? And then people are running around for you. You're thinking, what? And these people, I never understood why people wanted to do them away. Then I learned something called per diem. I don't know how to explain that one, but it's money paid when you're away. I was like, wow. So with that in mind, I started now really trying to claw into that space. And I realized, wait, but I've been doing this for a very long time. Because even the opportunities we were given when I was working, as much as sometimes it just looked like a task, it was, by the time you're through, because you also want to do it well, by the time you come to realize, you're realizing, wait, this one saying we did it well, and they're saying it was a difficult thing, but you did it well. Then you're looking at it, you're realizing, this is the same skill you're using here, where you're now preparing for training, you're looking for, and then engaging adults is a whole different scenario, because if you're boring, man, they will switch off. And I'm not even talking them, I'm talking me. Because you'll be in a class and you're being given some form of seminar, and then you'll realize you left that place, you went on tour. Because by the time you're coming back, somebody's tapping you, like, yo, what's up? You're being asked a question, and you're thinking, what? And your eyes, why you're being asked is because you were directly looking at the guy talking. But you left, your soul went for a walk, it went somewhere. So I'm imagining, I used to imagine that's the same thing guys were talking to happening. And the more, it's funny enough, the more you do something and it's tickling your fancy in all the legal ways, not some funny way, you start getting an urge to stick to it. And then if it's actually aligned to your passion, if you never identified it, you find that sometimes you'll even do it almost for free. As in, by the time somebody's asking, so how much will you charge me? And thinking, man.
Yeah, there's supposed to be some cost.
So how do I value the? How do I value? You start thinking that it becomes a headache. You're hoping that person comes and says, "Can you do this for me?" And then I'll give you this. You're thinking, that's cool. So over time now, this is how we've got it to that space where you're able to actually now quantify your value in terms of where you're at and how you're doing stuff. And those are some of the skills that, because I would see my colleagues, man, they see them, look at their LinkedIn profile, they're, hey, watch out. And they're thinking, I'm with this guy over here. But they seem to have it in knowledge in terms of, as much as I'm doing this is the cost, all that stuff and everything. And that's now another thing you start learning. You start learning how to price value, time your worth, among the other skills that you got before as crew. Organizational skills, self-awareness. There's something we call the moment of now, where you are always aware, grounded and stuff like that. You're not just flowing through things, because remember, you're always on, and especially after 911, for those who don't know the days, the towers fell, aircrafts were flown into them. Whether it was orchestrated or whatever, that doesn't matter, but that was an issue that costed, for us, their colleagues. They also crewed that aircraft that ended that way. So those kind of things causes you to be very situationally aware. Always, your radar is always hitting on 360 view on everything. So those skills, by then, they go with you all the way, I think, unless you decide to drop some of them. And for that training space, I think that encompasses everything I learned in the airline. Because now, like when we train, we are busy telling children, you know what? You need to understand that you need to see this from an entrepreneurial space. You need to understand that, even though there's a parent who said we shouldn't do that, you have 40 guys in class. I mean, all of you are competitors. Unless the whole airline is going to take the 40 of you, it's going to take maybe 5 or 10 max. So you need to understand what sets you apart from the other people. So what's your oomph? And the oomph doesn't come from because you passed all with 100. No, it's the other soft skills that come with that. The things I talked way before being a flight attendant that you need to do. You need to love people. And loving people doesn't mean cozying up with them and everything. No, is that people don't irritate you. It doesn't matter whether you're an extrovert, introvert, whatever vert you are, but you need to understand that you're a frontline. You're the frontline person, and you're going to be the brand for the organization that employs you. Yeah. Even if it belongs to your father and your mother, you still be the person these people are coming with. And for it to survive and sustain, you need these guys to be returning customers. So apart from you getting very good grades in class, you must have that extra that puts you ahead of the game,
So when it comes to the training, you've explained to how you got into it, and how you got to attest for it. So what about now? Because I know you are passionate about this. You're passionate about this. And I know you are partly in training. So tell us about maybe what you've seen when you're doing the training.
Oh yeah.
And what are some of the things that you can advise somebody? The people that you've just come from training. To somebody who's coming into training and somebody who wants to pursue this.
If you're looking for a school, let's start with that. If you're looking for a school, look for a school that doesn't hint that it trains, but shows it has a passion for that training. And how will you identify that? You'll identify that by how they receive you and the trainers that they expose you to. Why am I saying that? It's because if from the reception you find it very automated, oh yeah, you want to come? Okay, fine, karibu, fill that form, okay, nini, yes, this is it, that's, something is amiss. Because upfront training, go to any place where they train hospitality, and the one thing you'll notice is from the reception, the person is more concerned about showing you about the training space and all that stuff and the questions you have than telling you what they do. You get what I mean? They want you to lead by the questions because that is how they win you over. They're not going to shove things your way, so take this and this is what we have because this is all we are. 2, get into a space where the referral of what you want to do is very close by. What do I mean by that? If your trainer does not have, and unfortunately this is happening to a lot of people, does not have the background of what they're training, especially in things like the cabin crew space, it's theory. There's a very large gap of information that you're not going to get. Okay? And how that happens is because what is in books is really nice and safe, but what's on ground is a totally different story. Now, these two need to be combined in for you to be able to do that. The other thing is you can go by school reputation and stuff like that, but you can have a very highly ended school reputed for all this stuff. But then you just need to ask yourself, how many that have flown from these have really landed somewhere? Or it's just another conveyor belt like every other space we are in. So, and that means that, like the generation we are in, the reason why I love training and I continuously expose myself to it is that it is as challenging as it was when I was flying. And then now we're in this space where everything is changing in like this. And let's face reality, the next group of leaders are not like us. They have a very different way of thinking and doing things. So the challenge of, like you said, the group that have just come from training and I'm with them and they're asking questions and they want to lock in, I cannot give them the kind of training I got way back when now, but I can expose them to the experience I had, narrating it together with what is present now and the challenges they probably will see in the future to leverage that. And I thank God that I'm surrounded by a team of people that are also there, so I am not doing it alone, because for lack of better words, the world that we're heading to is very different from the world we came from. And the world we're heading to is all about innovation. It's all about critical thinking and way fast, and it's all digitalized. So you find that unlike us, where we would take a paper as your CV and your documentations and take it, even now that is there, but digitally, your whole CV is out there. And unfortunately, yes, there's evidence to that. People who qualified, got into, and started even training, but then somewhere halfway, they were called out and told, I kind of don't meet the brand because of other things that are in record that you not normally put in your CV for that purpose. So if you don't get mentorship way early before that tells you don't do that, then you eventually comes and bites you, and that's the thing. For us, that was something very difficult to think about, that something like that would happen. You'd be more concerned about somebody going to investigate your certificates because that they can find. But now that's not even what's being checked. You kind of have diarized your whole life, which is your CV online. So kind of plays, if somebody doesn't warn you early enough so that you're really conscious of what you're doing, because you could easily be with just a bunch of friends and then other things happen and then it costs you. So, and it's being recorded. And as they say, when immediately gets on the net, it's eternal. It doesn't disappear. So unless now you really are just trying to figure out your career space. But if you really want to, my advice to the next bunch of leaders is that keep your life simple, focus on what you need to do, and be very situationally aware of what can cost you. So avoid putting things on net. If you really need to, don't. That's the word, yeah. But in training, with the speed. But anyway, as the world changes, the advantage, the introduction of AI and everything, making the world even smaller. In Kenya, we are way ahead in terms of like in the aviation space. I just hope that the locking in would consider leveling it to the same level as all the other courses that some of them are almost becoming obsolete. And to be politically correct, I will not get mentioning them, but we all know them. But yes, if we got that kind of support, a lot of things would change. Because let's face reality, IATA says by 2030, we'll be doing over 230 something million people, and this is the market. So which means more airlines will check in, which means more expansion of the aviation industry and all that stuff. Unless things change, I don't think we're having another COVID. So, yeah.
Let's pray. In the aviation industry, there's always a cycle, and it's about 7 years.
It's about 7 years cycle.
It's a 7 year cycle.
Yes.
5-7 year cycle. Always something abrupt happens, disrupts the industry. People get all of a sudden then it rebuts again, and it's like, oh my goodness, why didn't I stick through it?
You know, I was so sure that we were going to have the resurgence of the East African airlines, but then that I don't think is going to happen at all. No. Everyone wants their own airline, you know.
But I've just remembered, it's a good time to plug in our sponsors. Actually, all this time we've not talked about our sponsors. But yes, wow. So Mugs on Both is actually sponsored by Capital Connect Aviation Limited. Capital Connection Aviation is a school that is certified by Kenya Civil Aviation Authority that offers all different kinds of training, okay? When it comes to whether you're doing your flying, okay, that's for your PPL, CPL, whether you're doing engineering, whether you're doing cabin crew, whether you want to become a flight dispatcher, or it's not cabin crew anymore, it is flight attendant. Yeah. Yes. So all these beautiful things in aviation, whichever career you want to get into, please go ahead, look for them on the internet, find them on Instagram, find them on the website, find them on Facebook, reach out to them, and they'll be grateful to get back to you. So yeah, now I think I would want almost to wrap this up. So there is the last thing that I possibly want to talk about is, you've talked about now the transferable skills. Okay, you've talked about the training and how you love the training and where you are with the training. The transferable skills, because that was the thing I was asking. Because, you know, it is, once I get into this, does it mean this is all I'll ever be? And like I said, I've sat down with you. We've had conversation. I was like, how do you get to think like this? What is so different? Is it because of your training? Like, what else could you be? And even not only that, not only after you've maybe been at the work, but even as you get trained, does this only, when you get trained as a flight attendant, does it only end at you becoming a flight attendant, and such that if you fail to become a flight attendant, then you have missed the purpose of your schooling?
That's awesome. I like the question. So let me see if I can actually cover every base on it in terms of, let's start with this. As a junior flight attendant, when I joined and I was trained, I was with a number of colleagues. Now, some of my colleagues did not go straight into flying. What happened was that they got to be put as ground crew, okay? A few years later, they joined back as flight attendants and flew. The advantage with them is that they had more advanced skills, different from ours, because now on ground you get to do other trainings, additional, that help you with what we call passenger handling. The systems that do with cargo, the systems that do with the passengers coming through, and more work on the ground. But then when they come flying now, they meet all the other skills that I had also trained with and they like. And the advantage with that is that even when they are transitioning into maybe another leadership role, theirs is, in terms of experience, because from where they came from, kind of builds out on that. However, There are others that I was with that proceeded to even join other airlines, and some who joined other airlines increased their level of training such that they went into the piloting space, and they actually came back, and they came back now as fully fledged pilots, ladies and gentlemen. And that sounded funny in my head because that's how we start our announcements.
Somebody would get confused. Somebody actually thinks it was a different conversation.
Okay, why did that sound funny in my head? Okay, now. But anyway, that's true. Both ladies and gentlemen. There are others who had prior training in other things. I remember there's one we used to call Daktari. Basically, he was actually a full doctor. But then his interest was pegged into the flying space. So he came flying and all that. And then we had a bunch of people also joined who were actually even registered nurses. And they joined because, again, here's an interesting part. How the cabin crew career started by a lady called Ellen Church, who was basically a nurse. And at that point, it's because a lot of people had their sickness and what have you. And with a great number of ladies who were weak, they started. And she started that because she was not able to fly at that point because ladies were not supposed to fly at that point. So she found something else to do, and she was able to pitch her idea to somebody, and the person she pitched it to, she was able to start in that flying space. So yes. Now the transferable skills that you gain over this period of time and the ones that you get to sharpen open your doors to anything. And I mean anything. Because as we were flying, we had people who are post-security forces that were still flying with us. It's one of the best helpful moments you would have if you had disruptive passengers. But even after they clear that, I know one who went out and went into training, and he's doing very well. He's training that division of people on something. And then VVIP handling and all that, because the customer service pays, the gentleness that comes with that, you know. The part that is most interesting is that most of the people I know are basically in active business where they've opened their own businesses and they're running with, they've employed guys and they're still flying. And their businesses are thriving. Yes, there's a lesson you also learn, but then even on flight, you do a lot of sales. And so, as I said, customer being the central thing, it kind of sticks with that. Now, what are the transferable skills? Now, for me, the skills that I got about organizational excellence, time management things, leadership proficiency, communication skills on all levels. The other ones that don't speak much about is like policy development, statistics analysis, things that some nitty-gritties here and there that you get exposed at work, and then you get them, and then you realize, by the way, they work in every center, and then again with other trainings. Some of which I had to do on my own cost, but you find that the opportunities to train are there. Things like in process management and things like that, where you find you just don't look at how things are done. You kind of try to figure, okay, why are they done that way? Can they be done better? Are there easier ways of doing this and all that stuff? Keeping data, information and stuff so they can refer. For me, I find them very helpful in the way I'm able to keep my students' records, do a follow-up, communicate, entail, collect, actively hear so that I'm not hearing to answer and things like that. And then again, the soft skills of heart. You know, we say heart because that's how you deal with disruptive passengers, where you have honesty, empathy, you have all that stuff. Those are things that you gain, that you work with throughout your life. I have a colleague who always says, I don't see why you can quench fire at work and not be able to quench fire at home. It doesn't, I mean, that distinction of usileta kazi nyumbani is the same skill. Yeah. But then again, it calls for a balance because you do not want to get to a space where you're psychoanalyzing things, you know. And those are some of the stuff that are very key and critical. And they go with you all the way, whether you stop flying or not. Because a lot of things can also make you stop flying. Health, injury, change of desire, like me, or age. Sometimes you might lose your employment. What else? Yeah, or just life demands. Sometimes I know of colleagues who left so that they can take care of the children. They decided, nah, it's family time. It's enough. Flying is enough. But then in the end, you come to realize, like now in Capital, where we train sometimes, you find that there's all this bunch of children and they have all these questions, and it can overwhelm you because each one of them is asking you. But then you realize that you're able to, it's just like the same way you're dealing with passengers, where everybody's asking something, maybe they're not happy about something. You're able to actually collect all that together and put it in such a way that even the way you attonate things, to bring them in a space where you're actually having a win-win situation, what we call assertiveness, other than being a bulldozer or a doormat. And such things. Those are things that you train over time to achieve. You don't get them. You can learn the theory in class, but until you sharpen it by using it and realizing, yes, this can do, it's to summarize it, all I can say is this: aviation is an ignored industry that basically gives you the skills you need to excel in life. That's the only way I can put it. Yeah, it looks like it's a fancy space, but for anybody who gets to work there, it doesn't matter which designation, the skills you acquire from there's no way you can fail in life with that.
Wow.
Yes, that's a fact of life.
Wow. Okay. I think that last point, it's really amazing. And maybe the last question is, has it been worth it? And what would you advise somebody who's just trying to get in, who this is all that they've dreamed, desired. You walked into it. You know, just like, yo, we're going in this direction. 20, but what about somebody who this is all they've been thinking of? Yeah.
I always tell this to all the young guys who, you have a dream, go for it. If it's your passion, don't say it by mouth. Passion is tested. So the obstacles you meet and how you overcome them to get to your dream will prove what you are saying. But having said that, I need to be very clear about this. Aviation jobs are not just readily available. Okay? So it doesn't matter whether you're training as a pilot or an nautical engineer, in dispatch or whatever, they're not just readily available, but they're there. And the difference is that as you start your training, because this is not an academic training where you can walk around with a certificate and say you've done it. This is a skill-based training that will only work for you with how you network. So, because if you notice, it's a discipline industry. You do not get there, even in any serious school, you'll always be in uniform with their brand. It's not that they want to do that. It's a rule. It's a discipline space. And people are watching you. So your network, as we say, your network is your net worth. Start building your network from day one. Okay? Expose yourself, find out what's on the ground. That's how you also get to know. Because sometimes the announcements are not in papers unless they're doing mass. It's usually 1 or 2 or 3 here and there. Depending on who you know and how you've exposed yourself, you will get to know. 2, study, research, do it again. You have to be in front of your game. As I said, you might be 20 in your class. You're all competing for a position. So I'll give you an example. I'll just talk about it because it happened and it shocked me. Jumbojet had a career day. They had announced it, they advertised it and everything, and it did a very big quorum of people showed up. Wow. And I liked how people looked. You'll see guys sometimes in their school brands, they had shown up. Then you'll see the ones with drip. That one I learned the other day. And I was like, okay. Now, they had tents for the different designations in the airline, and people went to these tents to talk about or find out more about this stuff. And they had The organizers of that thing, I gave them 101 kudos. They had done an excellent job. And then the food as well. Guess what? By the time the whole symposium, if I can call it that, was ending, they announced they had positions. They had not said that before, but let me tell you, I was so impressed to see a bunch of children show up with their papers in hand, dressed for interviews.
Wow.
And then there were those shuffling for papers to run home to change and prepare, which was too late because they did this at the end. And usually, because it was being done at the Kenya Airways Pride Center, the gates are closed at a certain time. So if you leave, coming back is another story. What am I saying? Opportunities will always present themselves, but in form of challenges. So if you've never prepared for challenges, you keep walking hoping that now a door will open for you, then you're in a mess. And this is the world we're living in. The third thing, for the person who really desires to get in this space, I tell them, research, and research. Why am I saying that? The other one was study. This plain research is what you know puts you ahead of the game. What you hear gives you caution. What you don't know is what costs you a job. And I've seen it too many often for comfort because a lot of what's happening is by hearsay. Hearsay this, hearsay that, somebody told me this, somebody told me that. And this is why we even have those guys announcing, oh, we have jobs for this, and then they tell you, pay this amount to check in. And then you hear somebody complain, oh, I paid up and I don't know. No, you didn't take time to research. Worse off, you can even be called for a job somewhere and you don't even research the organization. And then you go there and the interview question is, so what do we do? Oh, you're an airline. Oh, you. Oh. Because I always tell you this, if you're shortlisted for an interview, you're already qualified. They didn't just call you for the sake of it. You're already qualified. Guess what? You're the one who fires yourself. And I've been in enough interviews and failed.
So you're not saying this is a judgment.
I was just saying that was a judgment. No, I've been there. And interestingly, why I say training is fun is that there's a basis of training where you are supposed to do something, then you're supposed to look at it, and then you're supposed to analyze it and see if there's any other option of doing it. So when you start using the same skill, as I said, you start using the same skill in terms of why you do well or you don't. Guess what? Like, so why did I fail over here? Then you go like, and the questions are there, and then they go like, try. Then you go back. Because whatever you prepared for the interview, have you ever realized, it's just like some of these exams, I think some of these people are connected. Anyway, let me not say that one. You study hard. You prepare like there's no tomorrow. Then the exam comes, and the question they're putting over there is the one topic you did not solve. That's what in case when they put the question thinking, what? You even slept with feet inside water so that you don't snooze. And I mean, why do you think that happens? Preparation. Your preparation was high geared. And without saying too much, where do you think that comes from? How you were indoctrinated in education. So at this space where you want to get into the aviation industry, you must research. As in, you need to, before you're told about it, you need to know about it. You need to know what is required and what is needed. You get? Because you can't say you have a passion of being cabin crew and then you're going to put a tattoo in your neck. I said going to put neck, and you're saying you have a passion for cabin crew. How now? Because even if you do makeup, you're going to put a scarf over here. That scarf is going to pull up that makeup. I mean, you'd rather put the tattoo somewhere else. Emirates won't take you for that. I think KQ doesn't have, it's not too restrictive, but there's some restrictions because I saw a number of my colleagues with tattoos, but they were not visibly seen and stuff like that. The other piercings you can do, and you're saying you want to be in some places. Okay, pilots can do a lot of things because they're kind of special like that.
We are closed in. We are closed in.
You're closed in.
We are
But
closed
you can imagine there's certain piercings you will do to yourself that actually live with those dentures, and you cannot have that because you'll have that pearl stud on yourself, or as a gentleman, you cannot have any earrings on yourself and stuff. Okay, there's some airlines that will allow you, even the hairspace, but then usually they will do that for their nationals. But if you're talking about the international aircrafts that you probably will work for, this is the Middle East Airlines and the African Airlines. Most of them won't take you as you are. So, and this you're doing after the fact. You know, I like to be a cabin crew. Then you have piercings here, 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 in your eyes, here, where. Then when you chomoa them, what happens? You have all these tools all over the place, and then you can fill them up with makeup again. Because again, some of that can cause you a lot of agony. Those are the things. So it is important to get a mentor and a coach if you must. And there's so many on digital as well, talking about what is needed, what is required. And the opportunities are there. So there is no way you can fail if you actually keep those three things together. Yeah? Where you study, important. What you study, very important. And who you're studying with. And then the last, what you expose yourself to in that format of research. Yeah, I hope I answered it correctly. Because I'm not sure. You know, my mind can be going da 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 da.
But yeah, you talked about what they would need. So I think the only other part was just, was it worth it?
For me, believe you me, if I was given back the years, I would still check in. The only thing I'll change now is how well I invest myself. In terms of, because you can imagine, you travel to all these places, there are all these opportunities, but because at that point you're just in that excitement of traveling, coming back home, getting a few things here and there, there's very little you do. But I mean, the opportunity is crazy. Yeah, the opportunities are crazy. I'll still do it, but now I will do it with wisdom. I hope if I'm taken back, they do not erase the knowledge. So, but yeah, that's why I think we're in training. I mean, giving the same knowledge to the other guys now, do better than me. Don't go through the same mud and all that stuff that I took myself through out of ignorance. But then it was all worth it. It was absolutely all worth it. Wow. Yes. Wow. I appreciate everyone I've had in my life through that one, as in good and bad.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Mwangi, well, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you for exposing the flight attendant
I highly appreciate the
space.
This was awesome.
To
this was
us.
Awesome.
Yes.
Yeah, podcast. Very important.
You are very important. You've just educated entire masses of people.
Oh wow! Yeah. I hope they search us out and they learn more, because the world belongs to you. We are just giving you guide. We're just guiding you. So take it.
Yeah. So thank you, Mwangi.
Thank you so much.
On this show, because it's called Mugs on Both, that simply means we always, whenever you're starting up the aircraft, always put the mugs on both to make sure that the aircraft will not go off on you. Okay? But now we've come to the end of the show, okay? And the only thing that is left to do when you're actually about to now shut down the aircraft, we now put the mugs off.
Yes.
So our parting shot, we normally say, welcome to Mugs on Both, and now we are mugs off.
Awesome.
Yeah. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope to see you again. Bye.